Welcome to a new video in my home automation series, and a couple of weeks ago, probably about a month ago, I did a video how I'm helping to set up a new smart home which is based on TapHome and a hybrid PLC solution. And well, besides the TapHome and besides the PLC, we have a few other things that we also want to use in the house. And I have this Blitzwolf smart plug here. This happens to be a Wi-Fi smart plug, but the ones that we want to use is, I think it's BWS-SHP15. It's pretty much the same. It has a different form factor, and it's a Zigbee. So I wanted to integrate these Zigbee devices, and what I want to talk about here is how I managed to do this with a TapHome packet parser and SmartThings. So the idea is that I have a SmartThings compatible Zigbee gateway. The Zigbee devices are linked to that gateway, and I'm going to use the SmartThings API in order to integrate those devices so I can get the status of the device, and I can also control the output of the device from TapHome. And by no means this is the only solution to integrate Zigbee, and this is not a local solution. So TapHome is still talking to SmartThings, which means that if there is no active internet connection, this is not going to work. But this is just one way I managed to do it, and at least I learned how the packet parser interface in TapHome works, which is, I have to say, it's quite versatile. There is a lot that can be done with it. So it was definitely a good learning. I'm probably going to use this in the future for other integrations. So what I have done is I have TapHome here, and I have my SmartThings as well. Let me just move these out of the way so we can see the whole thing on the same screen. And I've integrated this smart switch here. So now you can see that the switch is on. And if I switch it off in SmartThings, then the status updates with some delay in the TapHome as well. And if I operate it on TapHome, then it switches on SmartThings as well. And actually it was really easy, because then the two things just can talk to each other. I just had to set up some HTTP calls, how I can get the status and how I can get the update also to TapHome. So what I'm going to talk about in the first part of the video is how to use this integration, how to create it for yourself. And then in the second half, I'll also go into the details. So if you want to better understand this packet parser, then, well, that's going to be a tutorial for you. So first, let me go to TapHome. And first, we are going to go into settings and hardware. And if you don't have a packet parser interface, you can just click here and select packet parser. And I'm already using this for Open Weather Map, but that's the one that I'm going to talk about. And all these integration can be saved as template, and TapHome has a GitHub repository. And so I added my template to that repository, and once that gets approved, then you can just add that template from here. So within a few days, or maybe by the time this video is released, you just click here, you click on SmartThings Samsung, and at the moment there is somebody already created I believe this is probably like a Samsung AC, and there is going to be a new one which says smart plug with power metering, which is going to be mine. So you click on that, and that would create this new module, which you can see here. And this module is already configured, it's already set up for a smart plug or a smart switch with power metering. So all you need is set up some IDs. And in order to do that, we have to do two things. So first, you have to go to account.smartthings.com/tokens. You have to create a new token. So you can just give it a name, and you select all these authorization scope, and you click on generate token. That would create you a token, which is going to be just a long string. So you note it down, and obviously you don't share it with anyone, because we are going to use this in the configuration. And next, what you also need to do is go into your SmartThings on the web, so my.smartthings.com, and just find the device. And when you click on the device, you can see the device ID here. So now with these two noted down, you can go on to my module that got created, and you click on the token, and then you paste your token here, and you paste your device ID here. And that's pretty much it. So after you save the changes, technically your plug will work, and then it will sync the status, the power consumption, and everything. And as you can see, I have created two devices in this module. One is the plug, where you control the output of the smart plug, and the other one is the power metering function. So that's a device which holds the energy and the power consumed by the smart plug. So now what I would do in order to do some good housekeeping is you can come here and then rename this, which renames the entire module. So you can rename it like, you know, plug 1 or kitchen plug or whatever. And then you also have to rename, so you click on each of the devices, go into service settings, and you can rename the device itself and the zone and the category and the device type. And you're just going to end up with, you know, plug, kitchen plug, and kitchen plug power consumption, or something like that. So there's going to be two distinct devices. TapHome cannot handle this information in a single device. And that's it. You don't really have to do anything else. And as I said, this is an integration, or this template is for one single device. If you have additional devices, if you have 5 plugs, you have to add from the template 5 times. Obviously, the token is going to be the same, but the device IDs are going to be different. So, you know, for every single, let's say, plug or switch, you end up with 2 different devices. And that's why I said to rename, obviously, the devices, but you rename this one as well, so you don't end up with 5. It says SmartThings switch plug with power metering, but instead it says like kitchen plug or bedroom plug or whatever. And that's it. Oh, by the way, just to show that it works, I mean, of course it works. Now you can see that it's on. If I switch it off here, it switches off here as well. And if I turn it on from the SmartThings side, then it also turns on in TapHome with a little bit of delay. And by the way, if you go into the service settings, and there is a read script here, it has a polling interval for 5 seconds. So TapHome is technically asking SmartThings every 5 seconds, like, okay, what is the state of the switch? What is the state of the switch? So this is why there is a delay in the TapHome update. You can change this to a shorter amount, but then, you know, TapHome just keep asking SmartThings. So I'm guessing this default 5 seconds is probably like good enough value. And that's it. The other thing I wanted to say is that when you switch the device here, sometimes you notice, well, actually what you can see here as well, is that like I switched it off and then it turns on and it turns off again. And that's just because of the weird timing of how TapHome is reading the state and updating the state. And when it updates the state, so I turn the device on, but when TapHome asked last time SmartThings what the status was, it says it's off because it was off. So it has this weird switching between these two states until everything is synchronized. I mean, it doesn't happen all the time. It happens sometimes. I try to, you know, put some script in so it doesn't really happen, but it does happen in some cases, or in few times. But now you can see that I turned it on. It switched it on and it stayed on. So again, it's weird timings, and I couldn't really dial it in order to make this work perfectly. So if you want to get into the details, then now I can talk about, you know, the details. So the way I started this is I created a new module, which is HTTP, and that just creates a blank module that you can see on the top. So the SmartThings API is HTTP based, and it's api.smartthings.com, and it's a secure connection, so it's HTTPS. And the trick is, or the trap for young players, is that when you switch the secure connection, the port remains the default 80, but HTTPS is on port 443. So you have to change this 80 to 443 manually. And then in the device setting, so in the service settings, you can rename this and the category, but I don't think it's really needed. But what I have, oh sorry, before that, I also created two variables in the module, and these are the information that I'm going to use later. So obviously there is a token, there is a device ID, and there is a status JSON, which I'm going to talk about just a little bit later. So in the service settings, you can specify a code what TapHome should do in order to read this service or consume the service. And this is how it looks like for SmartThings. So I wanted to go into the details of this, how I've managed to find out what the actual requests are, but actually there is there is quite a lengthy process to get to the bottom of this, and of course everything is documented on the SmartThings API. But in order to cut short, if you want to get a status of any device, then you have to send a request to api.smartthings.com, which is it's defined on the service settings or the module settings. So all I need to do here is I need to create an HTTP request. I don't need the host name anymore because that's configured. So here I only define the path. So for a device status is /v1/devices/ the device name, this is the device name. So I created this variable so you don't have to put the device name every single place in the code. So it automatically has the device name and /status. And this is a GET request. And then SmartThings uses the bearer token for authorization, and that's the token that we had generated a couple of minutes ago. And I just specified here in the header that the authorization is bearer, and the token that's the token that you pasted into the token variable. So it picks up the variable from here. And if this communication was successful, then we update the response and we put it into the status JSON. And by the way, if I show you how it looks like in Postman, I think I have so this is one of the device status, and then this is what we get back in the results. So you can see that we get back the current power, the power consumption, kilowatt hours, and then the current state of the switch. So that's what we are going to use. So we store this entire JSON in again a variable which is called a status JSON, and we are going to work from this variable. And if there is an error, then we leave an error that's something like for example, network is not accessible, or there could be other error codes, maybe like the device is offline. So that's this is what TapHome does. So it basically every 5 seconds it refreshes the state of the device, which contains the status of the output and the power and the energy consumption. So now if I go into the individual devices, so on the power consumption device, which shows the power consumption, so this is a new device. Sorry, let me get back. So when you create a template, when you create a module or it's a module, you can add devices. So obviously I added the digital output device, and that's the output status. And I also added this electric meter. And this electric meter only contains energy and power. It doesn't contain current or voltage or some of the other details that the device also supports, but not in SmartThings and not in TapHome anyway. So let's look at the power consumption first. And when I created this, so it has a name, zone, category, device type as usual, and it has again a read script for both the power and the power consumption. And this is actually fairly simple, because what we do here is, instead of reading this information from SmartThings again, we just extract this information from the JSON that we stored already in the status JSON variable. And if I go back to Postman, you can see that what is it we look at? This is the energy. So the read energy, the kilowatt hours. So here the energy is stored here, which is components.main.energymeter.energy.value. And So you parse the JSON, the status JSON, and then you specify the path. So contents.main.energy.energy.value. And if we can get this information, we return it. Otherwise, we return not a number. So, you know, it shows like a, instead of 0, it shows a not a number on TapHome. And we do the very same thing. So this internally pulls from the JSON at 15,000 milliseconds, but I guess you can set it to 5,000 as well, because it doesn't create an extra communication between the server and TapHome. And for the power, I do pretty much the same. So from the JSON, I extract the components.main.parameter.power.value. So again, if I look at in Postman, components main parameter power and value. That's easy. So this is how we get the power data. So at the moment it's all zeros, nothing is plugged in. I think it was only paired and connected just a few days ago, so it's really for testing at the moment. And then the plug itself, it also has a read script, which is again going to read the status from the JSON, which is component.main.switch.switch.value. So components.main.switch.switch.value and on. And here, if I can read this, then if it's on, so it's 1, otherwise it's 0. So for TapHome, it doesn't use on and off, it uses 1 and 0s. So this is just a simple conversion from on and off to 1 and 0. So that will update the output, which is this, whether it's on and off. And we also need a write script, because if I change the value in TapHome, it needs to go into SmartThings. And that was a little bit more complicated, because where is my post example? Yeah. So in SmartThings, in order to operate a device, you have to use, again, /1 devices, device ID, and the commands. And here in the body, you have to send in a specific command. And I found this, you always have to send in this JSON, and then the component, the capability, and the command will depend on what you want to do. And that was a little bit hard for me to figure out, so I had to just do some Googling until I find a matching example. So in order to operate an output, it has to be component main, capability switch, and the command on. And don't ask me how it looks like if the device has 2 outputs. So maybe in that case, under switch, maybe there is switch 1 and switch 2. I'm not really sure. But anyway, if I do this, it will switch it on. And if I send the command off here, it's going to be off. And in the arguments, we don't have to send anything. And this is what I'm doing here. So I create an HTTP request. And the URL is /1 devices, device ID, and the command, /command, and it's going to be a post request. And here I'm sending the body, and it's the same JSON. The reason of all these backslash quotation marks is this is how you escape quotation mark, just like in JavaScript. And then finally, I'm doing a reverse translation from 1 and 0s to on and off. And again, I need to send the authorization token. So this is the request which goes to SmartThings to turn the plug on and off. And that's it. And in order to mitigate that status shuffle that I was talking about a couple of minutes ago, I also added this part of the code, which basically does a 500 millisecond sleep, so a half a second sleep, and it reads the data back from SmartThings. And I think the reason it works sometimes and it doesn't work in other times, because I'm not really sure if half a second is enough for all this communication between the information going from TapHome to SmartThings, SmartThings processing the information, and my next request actually getting the update from SmartThings. So I think in most cases it works, in some cases it doesn't work. So this is why even if I edit this, I still get the old status back. And I guess I can play around with this sleep, maybe just increase the sleep a little bit. It's going to be a little bit more consistent, but that's where I am at the moment. So that's how the update script works. And that's pretty much it. So yeah, and of course for the power and the power meter there is no update script, because there is nothing updating that. There is no functionality to reset the energy or any of that functionality. And of course you can play around with the icons here and the text, but that's it. So it wasn't that difficult. It was more difficult for me to get my head around how I use the variables and how I use the read script, because you have a read script on the device, you also have a read script on the module itself. So at least I managed to just, by using the read script on the module, I can just read the information from SmartThings once and then just piece the data out from the JSON for the various devices. Because if you would implement the same thing on the device itself, then every device would just go to SmartThings, say, okay, what's your status? And it would get all the status back, where it would only need one piece of information. But now we are getting everything once and then just, querying that the response and then just piecemealing the information that we need, which is already local in TapHome. So I think it's probably more efficient, and based on the other examples I have seen, that's how they have created all the other integrations as well. So it's not that difficult once you go through the first example, and of course once you understand how the API works on the other side. And for that I have also found some good videos which explained how to use the status and the command in the SmartThings API, and it's pretty much how it works in any other REST API based services. So if you want to use a Shelly or integrate a Shelly, then that's exactly what you would do. But they have done the work for it looks like all of the Shelly devices that we have already, so you don't have to worry about those at least. So I think that will be all for today, and the link to, well, I can give you a link to the GitHub repo, but actually that's the GitHub repo that you can see here. But I also created a short documentation on my GitHub, which talks about how I did this and how you can copy it and create it and create an integration. This article doesn't go into the details, just the first sort of like 5 minutes of this video, but that should be good enough to get you started. And as I said, once my changes are accepted into the repository, then hopefully my option is going to appear on the SmartThings as well. And if I need to work on other devices, then I would definitely create new templates, and so there is going to be more stuff under SmartThings and maybe under something else as well that I happen to work on. But I think that will be all for today. Thanks for watching, and hopefully see you in the next video.